It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we doing?
I'm good. I'm a bit distracted because I'm in the middle of cooking some Irish stew downstairs, and the entire house just smells so good that I can't even think straight. That's where I'm at right now.
What are the contents of this Irish stew?
It's like beef and onion and carrot and celery, and then some Guinness, and then you let it all cook in tomato paste and look here, we got. I promised the Morning Rush listeners we would happy St. Pat's. We would sample a little of the Guinness before it got into the stew here, but yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, as we are recording this. So very, very festive of you, Alan, to be doing that.
Still not wearing green. I still failed in that regard, but
yeah, same. I didn't think that's where you were going with your attention being elsewhere a little bit as we record here. Steelers making a signing like 5 minutes before we jumped on here to record, and I thought you were going to say something to do with that, but not at all related to that whatsoever. Pittsburgh Steelers signing safety Juan Thornhill to a 1-year deal. This is funny for multiple reasons for me. I, less than a month ago, just clowned on this dude on the internet for having a Cleveland Browns tattoo and not having a very fruitful career with the Cleveland Browns. But I get it. It's part of his journey, bigger picture. He's got the NFL logo. He's got the Kansas City Chiefs tattoo where he started his career, added a Browns tattoo to it. So I guess my question is now, do we see a Steelers tattoo get added to this piece?
Well, I have a couple thoughts here. My first is that, Hey, you want to get a tattoo of all the teams you played with? I got really no beef with that. I mean, you said he has a Chiefs tattoo. That's where he was drafted by the Chiefs. Played 4 years. Was a second-round pick. My bigger question is, he got a Browns tattoo, and he got the elf and not the bulldog with spikes on its collar.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of person looks at the Browns logo and is like, I want one of these on me forever? Even just the helmet would be better than the elf, right? Like, that's the worst possible choice.
I don't agree with the decision either. I think he could have gone, like you said, if he would have done like the dog or something, there would have been a much more creative thing. I mean,
Lycourt disliked the Browns, and I assume that most of our audience dislikes the Browns. I think we can agree that the bulldog, or I think it's actually a mastiff, with the spikes on its collar is a cool looking, like that would make for a good tattoo, right? As long as you don't personally hate the Browns, that's a good tattoo. Like, that's a good looking, scary looking dog. That's a cool tattoo. The elf might be the least cool tattoo known to man. Like,
well, that's what I was saying. Not only
like 0 and 100, like that far apart.
Not only just from like a logo perspective, but especially turning it into a tattoo. Like, that's why, like, it makes for a better tattoo as well. If it's
a better logo than it is a tattoo, and it's not a very good logo. Yes, I would agree with that also.
So I just think on a lot of fronts here, he made a mistake. But
now,
anyways,
I think he can make up some points with the Steelers fan base, because Brownie the Elf, very delicate looking fella. You know, he's got little scrawny arms and you could have like a tattoo of like James Harrison tackling him.
Yes.
You can add on here in a way that, I mean, the Steelers logos. Do you have a Steelers logo tattoo?
I have the like the 3 diamond. What do they call it again? I always forget the name.
It's a hypocycloid, I believe is what.
Yes. So I have that like behind my left ear.
Okay. Yeah, like the Steelers logo, okay. I wouldn't say it's great. It's okay. But like something with some action here. We need like Jack Lambert chasing Brownie the Elf around his arm or something like that.
Oh, you said Jack Lambert, and I thought of Hunter Homestead. Random shout out on the show, but he has a Jack Lambert tattoo on his leg, and it's like just literally his face. It's pretty sick. Very, very descriptive piece. But anyways. before we just go off talking about things that aren't at all related to football, the football player that is coming to Pittsburgh, Juan Thornhill, what do we make of this? Was very intrigued by him when he hit free agency a few years ago before he signed with Cleveland. But like I said, his time in Cleveland hasn't been very fruitful for one reason or another. A lot of injuries there. Didn't even finish the last season as the starting safety for them. So what do we make of this, adding some safety depth?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a starting caliber player. Who will be a number 3 in Pittsburgh. I think that's pretty much what you want. I mean, he was cut by the Browns, so won't impact the comp pick situation. You know, he was their starting safety last year, him and Delpit. And then, you know, he got hurt. He had a calf injury and missed some time. But, like, he's had that to me has been the story, is that he has never been, like, healthy enough to play a full season. I think he's only played 17 games once. But like, he's a pretty good player. I think, like, to me, I feel like also fairly young for a third contract free agent. He is still only 29, will be 30, will turn 30 next season. But like, I think a younger and probably better at this point in their career player than Devontae Casey.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's basically what I was going to ask you in terms of the 1-for-1 trade-off that's taken place there, and like where you kind of see him fitting in. Like we talked about this team liking to have 3 safeties that they can play on the field all at the same time. If Juan Thornhill fits into that, which spot he'll be the primary backup at, or just like the fit in general within the defense.
Yeah. I mean, I would call Juan Thornhill like like, it's interesting because he can do a bunch of stuff. He's not really like a traditional like Terrell Edmonds sized box safety. He's about like 6'2", 205. Like, he's big enough. He's mostly played as like a free safety. Obviously, he's not going to play free safety over Minka. He's also played a bunch of slot, like man-to-man defense in the slot in his career, which he's okay at. So I think he's just kind of a different kind of weapon than what they've had. I think utilization will look pretty similar to KZ, but I think probably like KZ was like never near the line of scrimmage. Like, if KZ was on the field, they were moving Minka forward, or they were playing too high with the two of them next to each other. I think Thornhill's a guy you can maybe move around a little bit more because he is a little bit bigger, more kind of in between safety size than one or the other.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly don't hate it when you're talking about a starting caliber player when healthy being brought in as a third guy. I think that's a great move. We'll see how it pans out and what exactly his role is going to be within here. Sticking with the free agency stuff, another move that happened over the weekend, adding to the defensive line. We talked about, are they going to sign defensive lineman before we get to the draft? Dnaiel Ekuale coming over from the New England Patriots. I saw a lot of people like, I don't know who this is. Who the heck is this guy? Started a lot for the Patriots last season. And I think, based off what they would have been getting for the number, better value than what you would have had, say Larry Ogunjobi still on the roster.
So especially after Larry was suspended for 6 games.
Well, absolutely. So what do we make of the signing here and his fit within the defense?
Yeah, interesting fit. 3-tech, 5-tech, not going to be a nose tackle. So in that regard, like, very much a replacement for Larry. But I figure, like I talked this morning, I expect them to use a first-round pick on a defensive lineman. I think that player will actually end up being the replacement for Larry O, and this is really a massive upgrade at the 4th defensive lineman position. And that's really big. We talk about the Eagles line. They come at you in waves. They've had part-time guys be really successful. Milton Williams was not a full-time player for most of his time in Philly. Like, this is something that he can be and be good at. He has like pretty good burst for a really big guy. He's over 310. Not like the world's best run defender, but a really good tackler. Like, some big guys, when you get them in open space, they look lost. He's not that. Probably not as like mean as you might hope, but like, that's like, he's a good player. He's certainly a good enough player to be a big part of their defensive line rotation and be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of how I was looking at it too. And I guess that kind of plays into something else that we wanted to bring up. Just like if we feel like we figured anything out about their draft plans basically through free agency. I think this addition certainly does not stop them from taking a defensive lineman with their first pick. We still think that that's very much in play. But after everything that they've done, not just this one signing, is that still where you stand right now? Where, like, if you had to say they're selecting this pick 21, the position, that you're looking at defensive line.
I think we've gone overwhelmingly likely the defensive line is the first option there. Never thought running back was likely. Feel like wide receiver has gotten a little less likely. Just
do you think there's a position maybe like cornerback that maybe is I know that they signed Slay, but like, couldn't you make the argument because it was just somebody 1 year, not a multi-year deal, that would still be in play?
I mean, like if Will Johnson falls to 21, yeah. Like I'm not sure there's a great fit. Like all the guys they would be drafting at 21 are like Jahdae Barron, Benjamin Morrison, Siobhan Ravel. I feel like those guys are actually like later in the first round players. I don't think it would be a good pick. It's possible, like if Johnson falls, yeah. But like I don't think it's likely. I think we should talk about, hey, how about today? Pro Day, Ted McMillan. Not great. I've heard he's gonna fall way farther than people think. I don't know how far, but that's interesting to think about. I don't think he'll get all the way to the Steelers. But, I mean, that would probably give them their pick of the wide receivers if he does. But I still think it's defensive line. I've always thought it was defensive line. And I don't know. You're going to be hard-pressed to get me to change my mind at this point.
Well, I was just say McMillan goes down. Could it be, somebody else also going up, though? We talked about Matthew Golden, talked about Emeka Ibuka. If somebody really likes Luther Burden, like, could his fall also mean somebody else going up? So it's not like every receiver.
Golden, has been rising a lot. He was obviously kind of totally off the draft board at the end of November, and then had a really good college football playoff. I could see him still rising. He ran really well at the combine. I'm unsold on his lack of consistent production, but he's an interesting player. Certainly someone that I think teams like high upside, you could get down with taking him in the first round pretty early. So he could go earlier if McMillan falls. Yeah.
You mentioned trading down, and again, like I just try to work in these questions where I see fit. Desert Cactus gave us $5 over the weekend, so we appreciate that, and came back with a comment saying that the Rudolph re-signing screamed to him that the Steelers have their eyes squarely on a Tyler Shuck in the second, maybe trading down from their first round pick. Exact same build, first 30 visit, which we know are very important when you keep an eye on the process and what has happened in past years. After all, knowing him pre-free agency lets them prioritize the intentions at the position. And then, but basically says a lot more, basically just reiterating why he feels that way. But what is your thought? We've talked a lot about Tyler Shuck as of late. But do you really think that he's a prospect that could go even like within that range, like a trade down a little bit from the first to the second, and that's where we'd be looking at?
I mean, I'll answer this two ways. The first is I think the Rudolph signing for me makes it likely that they don't take a quarterback at all. Like I would say now like 50-50 on whether they draft a quarterback at any point. Because, I mean, you're basically saying that guy's going to be number 3 on the depth chart at best. Like, what's the point of Tyler Shuck? He's 27. Like, if you're not going to play him right away, I don't know what you want with him. Like, I don't know. So, like, if they take a quarterback, it's because it's value on the board on day 3. But they certainly have set themselves up to not have to take one if they don't want one. And this is a class where I don't think anyone should be wanting one ever, like based on where they're going to be taken compared to their ability. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's very realistic they won't take one at all. In the second, to me, feels completely implausible. They need a defensive lineman. They need a running back. They could use help at wide receiver. They could use help at corner. I would think all of those would be better uses than almost every pick they have than quarterback would be at this point. No player in this draft class will be a better quarterback than Mason Rudolph this year. None, not one single one of them.
I agree.
Like, what do you want with them? Like, why do you want them?
First and foremost, I definitely agree with you. But the part of that about not adding a quarterback, you feel like it's more realistic with the signing of Mason Rudolph, is that kind of marrying the idea together that, okay, Mason Rudolph's on the roster, but assuming that there's still another quarterback that is incoming at some point in free
Yeah,
agency.
they're going to do something else with quarterback. Absolutely. They're not going to go into the season with Mason Rudolph as the quarterback.
Because I was just saying, I think it was just last Thursday or Friday, we got asked a question about like quarterback room as constructed right now. Would it make, a Jalen Milroe draft selection more likely? And I feel like yes, but again, we don't know what else they're going to do in terms of the room right now before the draft. So like,
I mean, I
sign
can
Aaron
talk
Rodgers.
myself into drafting Milroe. I just I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to Aaron Rodgers has nowhere else to go. Let's talk about the quarterback situation. The Giants continue to parade in
Round we
every
go.
free agent quarterback they can find to be like, look, we might sign this guy. Aaron, better hurry up and decide. And he seems completely nonplussed by that parade. The Giants are, of course, offering more money than everybody else and still can't get him to show up. So I don't know why they're still hoping, but they're still hoping. And the Steelers have all the leverage in the world and feel like they're to me, the Vikings don't want him. They don't want to pay him. They don't want to guarantee him a job. I'm sure he would love to go play for the Vikings, but it's not going to happen. Doesn't seem like the Giants are going to happen. To me, the options for the Steelers are nowhere. I really have no idea how to handicap those two options. But if it's not Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure they'll do something else. Actually, I wrote this last night for today, and I got to bring it up because it was a bit surprising to me the way that the numbers came. So last year, 90.5 passer rating, 53.4 QBR, 65.3 completion percentage, 588 adjusted net yards per attempt. That's Joe Flacco. Aaron Rodgers was 90.5, 48, 63, 587. Basically identical numbers to Aaron Rodgers. So if you're thinking you want Aaron Rodgers and you don't get Aaron Rodgers, go get Joe Flacco. It's basically the same guy and 2 years younger, which what are the odds you could say that about Joe Flacco as a potential free agent signing?
Well, here's the one thing that I will say in regard to that. And I don't know that it's worth, say, $20+ million difference, which you're probably talking about here. But Rodgers, to me, got better as the season went on. Like, he was better in the second half, and I would attribute that to just more reps post Achilles. Like Joe Flacco towards the end of last year, and I don't know if it was just like because of that Colts team giving up or whatever, but it looked like they had just checked out as a team, and maybe that played into it. But I thought he went the other direction where he was getting worse, because like we saw when he came into that game against the Steelers, he was playing really well and had a nice stretch throughout the middle part of that season. But I thought as we got to the back half of the schedule, he kind of flamed out, whereas I thought Aaron, despite being 41 years old and being limited mobility wise, actually got better as the season went on.
It was a weird thing. Flacco came in and then Richardson came back from his injury. Then what did he get? He get hurt again, or did he get benched? I can't remember which one happened first. I think he got hurt again. I think he got hurt again, and Flacco came in and had a couple really bad games in a row. There was a loss to Minnesota and a loss to Buffalo.
That wasn't that right after Richardson tapped out?
It was that when he tapped out. Okay, yeah,
I think so.
And then Richardson came back, and then Flacco's last 2 games of the year, where they were pretty low stakes, but I thought he actually played good in those last 2 games. So I don't know. Look, he's not great. None of these guys are great. None of these guys are even going to be good, probably.
Right. Yeah.
If you're gonna have Flacco played for $4.5 million last year, so I think I would rather Flacco for $4.5 than Rodgers for $25.
It's an interesting number to just throw out there for Rodgers. 25.
I think he wants 30. I can't confirm that, but I think if the Steelers were offering 30, I think he would be in Pittsburgh by now.
Well, we'll see if they ever. But to your point, if they are literally the one suitor where it's like he would be willing,
why would they
play
raise their
there,
price? Yeah,
right. Yeah, why are you going to negotiate against yourself? I guess the only thing would be if you feel like you got to pay the guy $5 million extra to not retire, let him retire. Like he's already that much checked out. Like that's how I would feel about it.
Yeah, I mean he probably isn't. It's just negotiation, right? Like somebody, I was talking about this on Twitter the other day, and someone said what happened to not wanting hostages? Like this is a contract negotiation. They want hostages in those. He wants to be here. They want him to be here. The interest is mutual. This is just business.
one name that I want to bring up, because we were when we were going through the draft stuff, I honestly should have worked this in there, because the name that I wanted to bring up today visited the Steelers. Jaden Higgins, a wide receiver that we've talked about quite a bit, who I really like. You look at like the size profile, certainly fits what the Steelers have coveted. Also, interestingly enough, two guys on the roster right now kind of fits the size profile. So what in the world could they possibly want with Jaden Higgins, with DK Metcalf and George Pickens both on the roster right now? I think that's an interesting thing to explore and talk about, Alan, because does it even make sense for them to really covet this type of player the way that the room is currently constructed?
Well, Jaden Higgins is 6'4" and ran a 4.4 40 and is one of the best combat catch guys I've ever seen. So it makes sense for everybody to want him. I can't believe that his stock hasn't risen beyond where it is, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, when we're talking about like a receiver group coming into this class does not stack up with past classes, I think he's a guy that you could drop in pretty much anyone and say, that's a top 5 to 7 guy within the group.
I would take him in the first round. Maybe not where the Steelers are picking, but like if Buffalo is sitting there at where they picked 28, like if they want to take Jaden Higgins,
like all the time,
I would not call that a bad choice at all. Like I think he's a really good player. So yeah, part of this is just due diligence, right? But they don't bring guys in on top 30 visits just for due diligence. Usually they bring a guy in because there is at least some level of interest in the player. I saw him at the Senior Bowl. They saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was really good at the Senior Bowl. I understand being interested in him. This, to me, very much feels like a break glass in case George Pickens asks for a trade kind of scenario, right? Because, like, drafting – okay, Jaden Higgins is going to be either a second-round pick or maybe a very early third-round pick. The Steelers don't have one of those picks, okay?
Yeah.
So they would have to make a trade to draft Jaden Higgins no matter what. And like it would be completely pointless to draft Jaden Higgins with DK Metcalf and George Pickens on the roster unless they are implementing the air raid as an offense. Like there's no reason for 3X receivers. Like it's just kind of pointless. Every other receiver they've brought in, his teammate Jalen Noel or Savion Williams, they're different kind of players. This guy is just pure duplicating what they have on the roster. So this to me very much feels like a team that is, I don't get the sense they're shopping George Pickens, but I think they're at least trying to make sure they're prepared if in fact he does ask for a trade or things go south or somebody blows them away with an offer and they decide they want to go down that road.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to, and again, like it's tough to predict how things are going to go in a situation like this with George and with the team and stuff. I have a hard time thinking that we're going to see that take place before the draft. Like for me, it would be like a summer thing that we're going to be monitoring to see how it plays out. But I don't know. So like, I'm thinking, are we even going, like it's going to be past the draft to me where we really see that play out. And by then Jaden Higgins is on somebody else's roster. So I don't know, but I definitely, if they drafted Jaden Higgins, would not have any issue with it for me.
Yeah, like to me, it's like a catch-22 also because, like, okay, the way that I could see somebody blowing the Steelers away with an offer for George is that the wide receivers go earlier than everyone's thinking in the draft. It's not a very deep class, and now some team that really needs a wide receiver is like, crap, we are stuck, right? Like Buffalo waits on receiver at 28. And like, we'll get a second rounder, and then it's just a wasteland. But like, if that's the scenario, Higgins is going to be gone already, right? Like, it's very, very difficult to envision a scenario for the Steelers drafting Jaden Higgins that doesn't involve trading George Pickens for a second-round pick before the draft, which is a very specific scenario to be preparing for. I'll just say,
imagine that on draft night.
Yeah. Yeah, like before you get to, but like that's the only way I can see Jaden Higgins coming to Pittsburgh. Like nothing else makes any sense. So if they're bringing him in for a visit, I guess we should be open to that idea. If there's something I'm not seeing, if there's something I'm missing, some way that you get Jaden Higgins to the Steelers and it makes sense other than this, I guess he could fall to the third round. I mean, I guess that's plausible. I don't think it's very likely, but I guess it's plausible. Maybe he falls 15 picks into the third round, they go up and get him, and they want him to be the replacement for Pickens in 26 and beyond.
Oh, okay. You're saying George still on the roster. I was just saying because I've seen a lot of people throw around, and this might have been even the situation that you used when we did the mock offseason thing was New England pick 69 for George Pickens, and then that maybe being the pick to draft Jaden Higgins.
Yeah, if Higgins is on the board, I mean, I don't think that's great value for Pickens, but like that's probably makes sense for the Steelers.
Yeah. We kind of danced around the Aaron Rodgers thing, and we've talked about that obviously, but like one thing that I don't know that we really dove into that much is like, say he were to come here, what does that fit look like in Arthur Smith's offense? Because like, we've talked about this in the past last year when we previewed it, likes to go 5 wide, likes to get the ball out of his hands quick. Does it really mesh with the things Arthur Smith likes to do offensively? And what would that look like?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is one of my, so this is a question from, buddy of mine, Snooty Bugs on Twitter. Sent me this message. He said, like, what went wrong with the New York Jets that might not potentially go wrong in Pittsburgh? And if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, and what sort of offensive changes schematically and philosophically would need to be made to accommodate his skill set? So the second part of that is easy. Honestly, like, this is just having Ben again. Like, he's your offensive coordinator. I'm sorry, Art. Like, you got the hat and the headset and the play sheet, but you may as well be that guy who dressed up like Andy Reid in the stands in Kansas City that was using a Waffle House menu, because that's about as useful as all those things are going to be to you to getting what you want called onto the field for your offense, because your quarterback is going to do whatever the heck he wants. And it's not something foreign to the Steelers. I think it would be foreign to Arthur Smith, and I am very curious about how that would go, especially considering what we've heard about the relationship with him and Russell Wilson and how it deteriorated over the end of the season. I don't know if that's going to go well, but like, to me, that's the biggest thing that you have to acknowledge if you're bringing in an Aaron Rodgers. And then, schematically, obviously you're going to get rid of the quarterback mobility stuff, the quarterback run, probably play more shotgun. Remember, Ben didn't like going under center when he was, later in his career. He didn't like turning his back on the defense. I assume that Rodgers would operate in a similar fashion. It's basically you're just putting in Randy Fichtner's 2021 offense all over again, except with a different running scheme, and hopefully maybe you can run the ball enough on the plays that Rodgers doesn't audible out of the running call. Apparently, that was a big issue in New York. I've talked to some people who said that he like, I don't know if this is hyperbole or not, but that, like, he audibled out of every other run call.
Okay, well, so that's kind of what I was thinking, was like, obviously it plays into the football, but like we've talked about the reasons why we feel like, Russell Wilson is on his way out, having more so to do with non-football reasons than football reasons in terms of the play that he was putting together on the field. I could see a lot of the same clashes taking place with Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers, and like a lot of the same things there. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was kind of thinking the same thing in my head. Like, what does that look like? How is their relationship going to be? And there just seems to be like a lot of parallels for me with the way that this could go. And not at all meaning like the type of player that Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are, but just in terms of the relationships.
I don't, I think that's hard to speculate. I think you kind of got to throw people together and figure it out. Like, I don't know how you handicap that.
No, I get you're just in a different situation, but it's just we've seen it happen. If Arthur Smith didn't want Russell Wilson having full reign at the line of scrimmage, and that was like a big part of the reasons that they've clashed there, then how's he going to feel about Aaron Rodgers coming in and doing the same thing? Like, so that's why it's just it's I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if it happens. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, for sure. I think it has a great potential to be a mess. It could also work out fine. I mean, I think that most coaches would tell you they would rather deal with that and have talent than not have talent. I mean, that is coaching. Like, I think most coaches are okay with coaching. And so, yeah.
Okay. One last thing that I want to ask you, and you said you might be writing an article about this, so this could be a lot more like teasing than it is.
Breaking news too. Before you get to your last thing, the Steelers are re-signing Isaiahh Loudermilk.
Oh,
for Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.
even after the defensive line addition over the weekend. We just talked about, getting some depth there and upgrading there. Well, Isaiahh Loudermilk back.
I'm a little surprised by that. Like I assumed that he would move on after they signed Ekuale.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this means they're going to move on from Dean Lowry,
ahead
of time.
Possible if he's cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, that's a very crowded room.
Yeah. Okay, so there's something else that has to do with free agency. The last thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you feel like we've learned in free agency? You mentioned to me that you wanted to write an article about this, but so if you want to more so tease it than really give me a full on answer right here, feel free to do so. But with all the moves that they've made, still said you feel like defensive line in the first round is where you would put your money right now. But just in general, how you feel about the free agency haul and what you've learned.
Yeah, I mean, I think the free agency haul has been fair. I said they were going to have a hard time spending all their money, and they have. They will get there if they sign Aaron Rodgers. If they don't, I don't know what they're going to do. Trade for somebody probably. But I just think in general that the team has. I want your opinion on this too. I feel like this is the first time. Like the Steelers have always said, like, we're going to try to compete. We're going to try to be as good as we are. Like, we're never going to take a step back. And while I'm sure they're still going to say it, I think this is the first year where it's awfully hard to buy it. Where, like, it's pretty clear this is a tread water season to a quarterback in 26 right now on March 17th. Like, to a level that I'm not sure I can ever remember.
Yeah, no, I agree. When you put out that piece in terms of like the comp picks, right, and being clear that there was like a plan there where it's like it seems like all the free agents that they're signing are guys that don't count against the comp pick formula, and all the guys that they're losing, like they're really stockpiling on their 26 picks. And I really put that thought in my mind, and then I started looking at it like, man, I could see them being, if they're going to continue to add pieces, maybe it's like post June 1 and like deep into the summer when guys are no longer counting against the formula. And that's possibly the case. They could have gotten stupid this free agency with the amount of money that they had. And I don't think that would have been a good plan, but free agency could have opened up. They could have handed Darius Slayton like more money than $12 million per season to convince him to sign away from the Giants. Could have handed Charvarius Ward the same deal he got in Indy, and things had just gotten off the rails with him spending a bunch of money, throwing it around. Could have signed Sam Darnold to a contract. They could have done a lot of different things. But it seemed like they were very cautious with the way that they were going to spend. And I understand DK Metcalf obviously a move for now and the future. But yeah, it really seemed to me like, okay, 2025 is going to be what it is, but we're really looking at 2026 and moving forward for where this team really plans on. I know I keep using this term on here, but throwing their dart and trying to land the next guy.
Yeah. And like, there have been years, like last year, they didn't have the quarterback of the future. Everybody knew Russ wasn't going to be that guy, but I think people bought in to the optimism last year, sort of incredibly, honestly. But like, I don't see any of that this year. And I think they're like, I think the middle is probably where the accurate answer, where like I spent all last off season arguing with people on here. No, the Steelers are not really Super Bowl contenders. And I feel like I'm going to spend all off season this year arguing with people. No, they're not going to go 11-6. They're not like it.
If they had, where they were. If they sign Aaron Rodgers, or I don't think it's at this point, the door's still open for this and people can agree or disagree. You might agree or disagree, but say Russell Wilson would be brought back if they don't bring in Aaron Rodgers. What's worse about them from the start of last year to the start of next season?
No, nothing. I mean, they may be running back right now, but I anticipate with a very good draft class, them being able to fill that. Same thing with defensive line. Cornerback is clearly better. Safety looks better now. Receiver was their biggest weakness, and now looks like it could be even above average. Tight end is basically the same. Offensive line, it may not be better, but it probably won't be worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And like all this optimism going into, so I'm curious to see what the fan reaction will be if it's one of those two guys that are brought back in, because I could see.
And it will probably be either one of those two guys or some other player of roughly that ability.
Yeah.
Like it just
Yeah.
feels.
Alan, I followed your lead because I noticed you started having your handle down there. I'm assuming that was a thing from appearing on Locked On with Chris
It
Carter.
was.
Go
I was
check
just
that
too
out.
lazy to keep deleting it.
Yeah, well, honestly, it's a good thing, for people that are watching on YouTube. That way, they don't even have to wait to hear us say it at the end of the show to find us on our socials. But for people that are listening on the audio platforms as well, Alan, as we always do, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now as a sites account. You can't see that on the screen. You got to wait for me to tell you that the site account for Pittsburgh Steelers Now is PGH Steelers Now. Go to SteelersNow.com, read the words so I can get paid. Sign up for SN Plus, and you get to read them ad-free, which is better in every way, basically. And then subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform as we continue to grow, man. The growth on YouTube has been great. We're at 15,300. And, man, I'm drawing a blank here other than the current guy.
Did the number change? Did the number change from when I was looking at it before we recorded? Oh, dang it. I hate when this happens. It did.
I go, okay.
Oh,
Willie Reed. Florida State kick returner Willie Reed, number 15. Ben Skoranek obviously just officially re-signed a 2-year deal this year. I think I've taken all the good. I don't know where you're going with this. I can't think of it.
Rookie season Hines Ward.
Okay, there you go.
There's got to be somebody else within there. Oh, Cody White.
Oh, Cody. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cody.
There we go. Anyways, if you are listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure there's a 5-star review and subscribe over there.
15 or 16?
Who's that?
Mike Kruschek, who was a quarterback in '76, was a rookie. I think he might have been. He was either 15 or 16. I can't remember. I think he might have been 15.
Well, if it's you better save that one for the next round. But yeah, YouTube absolutely bumping. Shout out to everybody in that community. Like 8,000 on Friday's episode. Maybe you guys just like hearing us talk about Mason Rudolph. So we'll just put that into every episode. We'll have to find a way to work his way into every episode if that's what it's going to take. But anyways, if you're listening somewhere else, be sure there's 5-star review. Subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok. Then you'll find me everywhere. Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders and myself. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.